Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can simplify these expressions once given some other terms that are in form of trigonometric functions. So you can pause this video and look at the problems, and then let's get started. So we have like s is equal to sine of theta. Then all we need is to begin with this simple expression 1 of minus a squared. So how do we do this? We can see that s is already given a sign, so all we need to do is to plug in that variable, the equivalence of that, which is sine, and so this is 1 minus sine squared of theta. And so when you have this, then we are going always to refer a lot on the trigonometric functions. And so I recall that we have sine squared of theta plus cos of squared theta is equal to 1. And so in other ones, we can make cos squared the subject, which is equal to 1 minus sine squared of theta. So mainly all the expressions we are going to simplify, we are going to be using some of these identities and substitution. So thereby this means that this term here becomes, you have square root of the inside part, which is now the cos squared of theta, and so the square root can go with the square, and then this gives us cos of theta. And so we can say therefore that the square root of 1 minus s squared is equal to cos of theta. So that's the first problem. The second problem B is given that s divided by square root of 1 minus a squared. And so again, we are using the same approach. Try to do the substitutions first. So s is the same as sine, and so this is going to be sine theta over square root of 1 minus sine squared of theta. But we have already seen that this lower part is equal to cos of theta, so we could just technically substitute into cos, or we could just again do step by step and substitute in and see how we are simplifying that. So I'll do that, and so this is 1 minus sine squared. We'll see that it's cos squared, and so this is cos of squared theta, and so which simplifies to sine of theta over cos of theta. So we could just straight away substitute for that, but we just need to include this in our steps. And so this becomes tan of theta, and so that's where it ends. So thereby you can say s over square root of 1 minus a squared is equal to tan of theta. So that's how we simplify that problem. So the next problem is that is problem C, is 1 minus a squared over s. What is this? So again, do the substitution. 1 minus sine of squared of theta, then over sine of theta, and then this means that we have the upper part is the cos of squared theta over sine of theta, because we have already seen that here. And so this means that we can split this up as cos of theta times cos of theta, everything over sine of theta. But what is cos theta over sine of theta? Is cot. So we can say that therefore s over 1 minus s squared over s is the same as cos of theta times cot of theta. And so that's where this problem ends. Okay, so now let's look at another part, and the next question, question 2, is telling us that c is equal to cos of theta. Then we simplify, and our part A is basically almost like the first part in the first question, 1 minus c squared. So again, this is simple, just plug in our cos, and so that means we have the square root of 1 minus cos squared of theta. And if we try to refer to the first identity, plus cos squared theta is equal to 1, we can see that sine squared of theta is equal to 1 minus cos squared of theta, and so we can now plug in here. So that means that 1 minus cos is substituted for sine squared of theta, and so this becomes sine of theta. The square root goes with the square, and so basically that's how we can simplify part A. And then for part B, we have that square root of 1 minus c squared, everything in brackets, over c. So again, do the substitution. This is becomes 1 minus cos squared theta, everything over c. And we have already seen that 1 minus cos squared theta is sine squared. So basically, this becomes sine squared theta over cos of theta. Again, we could technically just borrow this from here, but I just want to make sure that we have all the steps for each question. And so this becomes sine of theta over cos of theta, because the square will go with that, and thereby giving us tan. So we could simply say square root of 1 minus c squared over c is the same as tan of theta. So that is how we can quickly simplify that expression. And then part C of number 2 says you have c and then over 1 minus c squared. So just do the substitution for c, which is the cos of theta, then everything over 1 minus cos squared of theta. And then let's go with the identities. 1 minus cos squared is just sine squared, so this means that we have cos of theta, everything over sine squared of theta. And so let's see where this takes us. So we can simplify it as cos of theta over sine theta times 1 over sine of theta, because sine here is squared, so we can split it up into 2. And so thereby this first term is cot of theta, then times 1 over sine is the cosec, so this is cosec of theta. And so this means that c over 1 minus c squared is equal to cot of theta cosec of theta. And so that's end of number 2. So let's continue with number 3.